and talking slow. Sometimes
Yeah.
I get in the weeds on stuff.
I do too sometimes.
Yeah.
All right. So welcome back to the Outdoors International podcast. We have Kyle Hanson on again. Last time he and I were both getting ready to go on an unguided moose hunt, and he's a gear freak. So I picked his brain on what he was taking for his gear, because on both of our hunts, we had to provide our own.
Thanks for having me back, Cory. Well, everything went great. Mission accomplished. We brought home 2 world-class bulls, and we got in and out of the field safe. Stuff goes according to plan up there, and stuff doesn't. So
Right.
just kind of diving right in from the time I left Iowa. I was kind of in a conundrum of trying to get to the airport and get all my gear to the airport, because my partner Matt, he was coming from Denver and I'm coming from Iowa, so we're flying from 2 different spots. So I ended up sweet talking my dear old dad into driving me 4 hours to the airport and dropping me off. We stayed the night before, and then I had him drop me off right at the airport gates with all my gear, because I had 5 checked bags going up. So like I told you, I brought my whole camp, and
Right.
it was 5 bags total between the whole camp, food, hunting gear, and everything, and cooler. But got in there, got checked in safe, no issues. And then got up there, no delays really. When I showed up, though, right away, I got a little worried. My rifle didn't show up.
Oh,
But
really?
yeah, that's kind of to be expected, though. And also, like, our hunt was scheduled to put in on the 12th, and we got there on the 10th, just in case of that exact reason. And my rifle ended up showing up the next day. It was no big deal, but we wanted to get up there early in the event that we could get into the field early. And we actually almost did go into the field a whole day early, because that area that they were taking us, the ridge area, it's very, very temperate weather-wise, and so normally when they have windows to get into that spot, it's after the fog is lifted for the day in the afternoons. And with those smaller plains, bush plains, the conditions have to be really, really perfect to get in on those spots. Like, they need maybe 7 to 15 mile an hour consistent wind to land and take off. If there's no wind, they can't land or take off. If there's too much, they can't land or take off. If there's too much fog, they can't go in there. If it's raining, they can't go in there. And all of the above happen a lot in Alaska. So,
for sure.
So when they could get guys into these spots, it's usually only for a couple hours. And so we almost got in on that first day, but yeah, no big deal. They were behind when we got there, of course, with weather delays. Everything always is. It's pretty much to be expected. But then the next day rolled around when we were supposed to go in the field on the 12th, and we were all staged, weighed out, ready to go. Pilots approved our gear list. We came in a little bit underweight, which was good, because that put us first on deck to get into the field for the ridge hunters. And
how many ridge hunters did they have going in?
They do 3 groups.
Okay.
So three groups, 3 spots for the ridges. It was just Matt and I for our spot, and then the other group that was there, it was a 3-person group. There's two hunters, and then like an observer / extra packer, probably mostly. Right. And then there was one group already in the field that went in a few days early when we got there.
Wasn't Russ on one of the ridge hunts as well, or was he down in swamp hunts?
He did the standard hunt.
Okay, yep. I thought he did the ridge hunt. So
no, he did the standard hunt this time, and then he also he did that standard hunt the last time he went up there, and I did the standard hunt the first time I went up there as well. So, but anywho, so we were staged, ready to go.
Which one did you prefer?
Well, both hunts are 100% different experiences. Like, one is like the standard hunt I told you last time is very similar to like whitetail hunting, where you're essentially like ambush hunting, looking for pinch points, waiting for something to come to you. A little bit of calling in there, but it's not quite the same dynamic as like an elk hunt. Whereas this moose hunt I went on last September on the ridge, it was very much like an elk hunt. There was a lot of spot and stalk, a lot of communication, as far as vocalizations, trying to get the animal to come to you. You actually got to see the herd dynamics on the ridge, because they're herded up similar to elk. So like there'd be like a herd bull and a harem of cows, satellite bulls. You'd hear them calling, talking a lot. Um, there's probably a lot of moose in that location that have never seen a human being before. Whereas the standard hunts, there is more hunters in that area because it's more easily accessible. But in the ridge areas, the only way to get there is from a bush plane or a helicopter.
Right.
So just the animal behavior was completely different as a result. Um, so yeah, they're just entirely different hunts. But to answer your question, which one do I prefer? If I want to get the largest animal possible, going to an area that has a little bit more age class, and that ridge area is known to have similar but occasionally better genetics because it's closer to the guided areas. The ridge is more favorable.
Right.
I think the perfect scenario, in my opinion, is like something right in between those two areas where you'd have some rolling hills, maybe some elevation changed where you could kind of get up on a knob a little bit, spot, be a little selective on what you go after instead of just kind of waiting for something to come by.
Right.
But is not quite as swampy as like some of the standard hunts can be. And I know that this outfitter, they do have some areas like that, but they just don't have very many of them. So, you know, if there's only a few spots like that that are kind of like the in-between area, it's just luck of the draw. But some, like all those hunts, some of them are more wet than others, and it just depends. But a ridge hunt was the most physically intense hunt I've ever done, though. My buddy Matt, he's been on goat hunts and sheep hunts before. He said that was the hardest hunt he'd ever done, which kind of surprised me because
No kidding.
yeah, because you still don't have solid
The packing
ground.
it out aspect, packing out the meat,
Yeah.
that aspect of it. Right.
Yeah, packing out the meat, and then there's not a lot of elevation change, but it's all really soft ground and steep incline on the ridges.
Right.
So it's just pretty extreme terrain. So
right. That was it tundra or like almost tundra?
Kind of like more like almost tundra. It was still that like soft mossy surface that was like 6 to 10 inches thick, but then there was like rock underneath it.
And that's how where I was. It was the same way as that. Yeah, it wasn't
Gotcha.
really tundra. A little easier to walk in than tundra, but still kind of sucked.
Yeah, there's just a lot of really steep stuff in this area, and there were some boggy spots too. Like where I killed my bull, it was pretty soft down in where I found my bull and got him.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, like when you're up higher in the elevation on top of the ridges, it's pretty solid, but a little bit of uneven terrain because of the rocks underneath it.
Right.
Lots of ankle rolling and heel slipping, all that fun stuff that makes your feet feel good.
For sure.
But yeah, so I like both areas. Next time I go, I'm probably going to do one of the standard areas, and probably take a buddy that's never been before. And then like what I would do is I would just focus on getting like a meat bull and try to get a buddy a nicer bull.
Right.
You can get nice bulls out of either areas, and actually as far as like which bulls are coming from which areas, the ridges consistently do have a little bit larger bulls because you have the ability to spot, stalk, and be selective in that situation. Whereas the standard hunts, it's luck of the draw. But big bulls do come out of the standard hunts. Like there's plenty of upper 60-inch class, lower 70-inch class that come out of those standard hunts every single year.
It's crazy the consistency of big bulls on that hunt. It's crazy. I'm impressed every year by that one.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. There was, I think the biggest bull of the year up there here last year was like a 71 or 72-inch bull, and it was a unguided hunter.
Crazy.
So, but
can't even imagine a 72-incher.
I can imagine it. Mine almost touched that.
What was yours?
About 69.
Yours was a monster.
69 and a half, just a freak bull. Yeah.
That's just stupid, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't believe it. When when I spotted him before I went in after him, actually, I kind of get ahead of myself, but with every single bull on that entire hunt that I looked at through the spotting scope, I was looking at, and I was just like, okay, I'd usually like put my phone scope up to the lens, and then I'd look at it on my phone, kind of blown up a little bit, and then I'd take a video and pause it, and then I would like sit and stare at it, so that way I could get the same like forward view and assess the width.
Yep.
And by doing that, I could usually guess within a couple inches of how big the bull was, and really sit and pick it over. But with this bull, when I saw it, I stuffed in my pack what I needed, and I took off.
Yeah,
I was like, yeah,
I get it.
I was like, that one, that's the one. But which that's kind of nice. I mean, that's how I was hoping it would be. I was hoping it was one of those just go in blind and I'll know it when I see it, not like a certain benchmark that I was trying to hit or anything like that. I just knew that when I saw him, I'd know. And that's just how it worked. And it was the same deal with Matt's bull, actually, because mine was like 69.5 inches. Matt's was like 64.5 inches or something like that. 64.
Wow.
Yeah, just absolute pigs. But I'll get back to that a little more. I was gonna say.
Okay. I keep distracting you. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I just I want to make sure people know how like getting in the field works and stuff like that. So
and I'm sorry. I think I'm getting a cold. I've got a cough every now and then, so I apologize.
No, that's all right. So. No worries. But so the day that we got to go into the field, we were able to get in the day that we were scheduled to. However, something really important there, the pilots, when they walked in and there was 2 ridge hunting groups ready to go in the field, myself and Matt, and then this group of 3, they had a narrow window, and they had to choose who gets to go into the field first. And they looked at us, they looked at our piles of gear and said, "You guys ready to go right now?" We're like, yep. We were underweight. We did not have very large and bulky gear. So it's very easily packable in the plane, to the point where normally these planes, when they put people in the ridge areas, they have to take 2 legs into the field. They normally fly you in a Cessna, which is like a 6-person plane roughly, up to one of the villages north of Bethel, and then shuttle you in bush planes from that village to the ridge. But because we were so light and we didn't have bulky gear, we were able to go straight from Bethel to the ridge. No intermediate stop. I haven't talked to anybody else that's been in that situation. So food for thought, set yourself up for success. If you don't really need it, it's okay to leave it back. We didn't really have anything particularly too bulky. Really the bulkiest thing we had was like a duffel bag filled full of like survival gear and food, and then the camp. Everything else was smaller stuff that all fit in our packs and our weapons. Including our clothing. I think we had like one 55-liter dry bag or something full of clothing between the 2 of us. So, and
I'm guilty too. I almost always take too much clothes, and I take way fewer clothes than most people I see. Way fewer.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and we had extras too. Like if you look through the gear list, there was plenty of luxuries in there that we didn't really need that we were prepared to bring back. We had a Mr. Heater little buddy with us. Right. If we didn't have weight, that was going to be one of the things to go. We both had multiple pairs of boots and extra insoles. You can get by with 1 pair of boots if you have to, but we wanted to bring it just in case. We were able to bring it. So going in the field, that was probably the funnest airplane ride I've ever had. That was a trip. You're flying in a little bush plane, rubber tires. Yeah, it was crazy feeling taking off in one of those and drifting off into the clouds a little bit. And we got to see grizzly bears and black bears and moose all the way in. And you can see the terrain changing from flat to rolling hills to more rolling hills, crossing the Great Yukon, heading north. It was such a cool feeling. And then coming in on our ridge and landing, that was unreal. That was such a cool feeling. And your world gets pretty big when you get on top of the ridge too. Like when you're above it up in the air, you look at it and you're just like, oh man, that's cool. It's a really big hill. You get on it and then you realize the next hill next to you is like 1.5 miles away. Right. Yeah. Just everything looks so much like it really is. But It's huge country up there, and we were able to get in and land safe, no issues. Got there fast. Um, got camp out. Um, I flew in with Wade, and then the other pilot flew Matt in with his gear. So I was the first one on the ground, and he just walked me around the ridge real quick and pointed out where he thought I should camp, and shoveled the gear over to where I wanted to camp. And then he just shook my hand, said good luck, and it's like, stay in touch. Bye.
See you later.
It's like, oh my God, what have I done? And because that's the thing, like they don't take people to the ridges and hold your hand. I mean,
not at all. No.
When they drop you off, they're trusting that you're gonna survive and you're gonna be just fine.
Not
Otherwise,
called an unguided hunt for no reason at all, huh?
Nope. And they wish you the best of luck. They want to see you be successful, but they're not gonna hold your hand doing it either. So it's just like, yep, see ya. And then as soon as he took off, I just remember like, oh wow, I'm a long way from home here, but better get started. Went and picked out a campsite. I remember last time when we spoke, you were asking about wind direction, opposing winds and stuff like that. So I found a campsite that worked well with the prevailing wind. Can't quite remember what that is right now. I want to say mostly north.
Right.
With it was either mostly north or occasional south, and that actually that kind of dictated where we were seeing moose that day. So I think when the wind would blow into certain areas, they would kind of tuck around another ridge when they'd sense us.
Right.
So there was like two main drainages that we were seeing them in, and it correlated a lot with wind direction. Like if the wind was blowing to them, we wouldn't really see them in that drainage that day.
Right, for sure. That makes sense.
And, I think there were multiple herds in the two different locations because they were about 3 miles apart where the main concentrations were.
Right.
Like 1 mile this way from camp, 1 mile the other way, main concentrations. But anywho, Matt got in about an hour before or after I did, and we got camp set up real quick. Had a pretty sweet spot. There was not much flat ground even on the ridge.
Right.
So we were still kind of camping at a slight angle and readjusting our cots every single day, but found a sweet spot, and then we went and scouted real quick, and we just went around the whole ridge, glassing in every single direction. And I think we spotted between 20 and 30 bulls just that first night, and a grizzly bear eating on a ridge right next door to us.
No kidding.
Yeah, just looked like a giant brown vacuum cleaner inhaling blueberries on top of a ridge. It was pretty cool. But saw a ton of bulls.
Cool.
Yeah,
I was going to throw it. Pause just a second. I just want to throw in some context. If you didn't listen to the previous podcast, we have a gear list on there. We talk all about gear and preparing for this hunt. So if you're we're kind of glossing over the gear side and what we took, but if you're interested in that and you're going on a hunt, go listen to the previous podcast. I just wanted to throw that in there. It felt like we need a little bit of context there. Yeah,
for sure. And I'm not going to go too detailed on gear other than saying what I do differently
from the previous.
Just because it's like this is a follow up to that one. So I'll just assume. I'm just assuming that somebody's already listened to it.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
Or at least read through the gear list. If you read the gear list, you'll know what I'm talking about. But anywho, we scouted, got ready, made some food. I think we had a little drink of Crown that night to celebrate getting into camp safe, and went to sleep.
Right.
Woke up the next morning with a game plan of, okay, we saw the main concentrations here and here. Let's just go hit them at first light, see what we got to work with, and start coming up with a game plan of how we're going to get one of these things killed. And the moose were pretty close to where we left them the night before. They usually stayed in roughly the same spots overnight. But we just worked our way around the ridge. We decided that right away we're probably just going to get a feel for what's in the area and not just go after the first bull that we could.
Right.
Just because we had so many options. And within 10 minutes on the first morning, we had a 58-ish inch bull, which is looked like a lot younger bull than what we were after. Just didn't really look real thick in the body, kind of long-legged. And we had a 58-inch bull first morning, first 10 minutes, spotted within probably 700 yards of us where we were glassing. And Yeah, first morning, 10 minutes in, we passed a 58-inch bull. It's
crazy. That takes some gumption.
It's crazy, but it's just one of those.
You guys were both rifle hunting, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And I'm actually mostly a bow hunter nowadays. But actually, when I started planning this hunt was before I had even picked up I at no real point in time was I too concerned about the weapon. It was just like I originally planned on taking a rifle. I was just going to follow through with that. Try to increase my odds of going on a hunt like that too. But yeah, so we knew we didn't want to just shoot the first bull that came by, and we wanted to get a feel and figure out what the representative animal for that area was. And so first day we saw a bunch of animals. Weather was great. Pretty much just spent the whole day glassing, looking at animals until that afternoon. We're sitting on a side hill, and Matt, he's like, "Hey, I see a black bear." And I was like, "No way." So we get the spotter out, we look, and here's just big old fat black bear off on a blueberry side hill. It's about 1.5 miles, close to 2 miles away. And he's like, "Holy cow, there's actually black bears here," because both of us bought the black bear tags on our first hunt. Yep, and on this hunt. Which a little background story on Matt. Matt and I, my partner, we met on the hunt in 2016 because he was there with his buddy and I was there with my father, and we both knew we wanted to go again and try to target something exceptional for our second round. So that's how Matt and I met, and we're best friends now. But
I didn't realize that. That's awesome.
Yeah, he's a great guy. Lives in Colorado, and heck of a good hunting partner if he'll go with me on something like this. But anywho, so we saw a giant black bear, and he spotted it. He's like, "Man, I'd love to go try to take a poke at that thing." And I was like, "It's day one. Let's do this. Let's go get him. He's right there." Well, we got humbled real quick. we stuffed the packs and left everything behind we didn't need, and we just dove down right in after him, crossed down through our ridge, up the next ridge over, bopped over the top of that. It took us almost 3 hours to get all the way over there where this black bear was feeding, and we went and we waited there for a few hours, and we never saw it again, and we figured it just moved on. On the way back, we were regretting that hike. On the way back up the hill, we decided that we weren't going to go over to that spot again. And then we got back to the top of the hill and looked back over there, and it was out feeding again. About a 6-hour round trip. But that the positive I took out of that was that we found out that we could get over there and that it really sucked. So we figured out our boundary on day one. That's what I took out of that, of how far we're willing to go. And we got to kind of keep it under 1 mile from the ridge, just because it's really hard to get back. It's not that hard to get down your ridge, but it's really hard to get back up your ridge.
Especially
so
if you're packing a moose.
Yeah. So then the next day, I think the next day, we woke up and we were fogged out, and we were fogged out all day except for the last couple hours. And then the last couple hours of that day, Matt spotted a really good bull. Ended up being the same bull that he killed a few days later. And it was across camp from us up this drainage, and we spotted it. We were just like, well, should we go? Should we stay? It was about 1 mile away, and after our nice little hike, nature walk after that black bear the night before, we were just really hesitant about going. We had a couple of hours of daylight left. We just decided, well, we're going to leave him there and try to pick him up tomorrow. And next day, same deal, got fogged out, and this is where we were kind of getting a little nervous, because here it is, we've had the second weather day and it's the third day of the hunt, second hunting day, something like that. And so we kind of just try to glass the whole day. We cold call a little bit, getting a little nervous because it's our second weather day already. And we're like, man, what's going to happen if we get fogged out on this whole hunt? Do you imagine spending a couple weeks up here and being fogged out the whole time? This is going to suck. But that's just the way the weather is up there. And towards the end of the day, the fog started to burn off, and we saw that bull again. And he was with a harem of cows, and he was in the same spot. And something we started noticing right away too is that the herd bulls, will stay in about the same area. They'll usually be within like a quarter to a half mile of where you leave them the day before, because their cows kind of stay in certain little pockets with their harems. And we noticed that because we'd see the same larger, older bulls in the same spot, but a lot of the smaller bulls, like the satellite bulls, they would kind of come and go. Like if it was a satellite bull, you'd see it one day, you wouldn't see it again the rest of the trip, pretty much, because they're just always moving through. And satellite bulls were usually in that 50-inch class or less. But this one bull up the drainage that is the one Matt ended up getting a couple days later, we saw it. And once again, we sat on the ridge side and hemmed and hawed if we were going to go after it. Matt didn't want to go after it. I did. And so we decided, hey, I'm going to go take a crack at this bull and see what happens. But I'm going to do everything I can not to push him off and just see if it's doable. So I hiked down there and spent a couple hours getting over to him. And I actually got to within a couple hundred yards of this bull that was about 64, 65 inches, and sat there and watched it for about an hour while it was bedded, but it was in the brush with a couple of cows. And I never had a shot the whole time. Then about a half hour before dark, here I am about a mile from camp, and this bull's bedded out in front of me. I don't have a shot. I can see like part of its rump and part of its rack on one side, and out of nowhere, it just it stood up with its butt towards me and just walked away. So I never had a shot at that one, but then it went up and over the next ridge, and I could have gotten around on it and probably got a shot on it, but it was past that threshold that we decided on the first day that we were willing to go. And so I just literally turned around and walked back for 2 hours back up to the ridge. And Matt, I think Matt was glassing the whole time, and he's like, I didn't hear any shots. And I was like, yeah, no, didn't hear any either. So, but so then I think on the next day, this is the day that Matt ended up killing his bull. We decided, okay, we're seeing the moose in 2 different spots. So Matt kind of had claim to this bull, even though I had already gone after it the night before. He did spot it first, and we decided that if someone spots it first, then they can have first dibs.
Right.
And so unless the other person doesn't want to go after it, so that's why I went. That's why I went and took a crack at it. Well, we decided, okay, he's going to watch this drainage. I'm going to go to the other side of the ridge and watch this drainage. And so we did. We split up, and I was glassing, and then I got a text on the inReach, big bull down, about mid-morning. Well, as soon as I went back to the other side of the ridge, that bull from the night before that I took a crack at, him and all of his cows started pouring back over the top of the ridge back into that drainage right where they were the night before. And they were just kind of going back and forth between the 2 drainages. And so Matt, he went down there and got the wind right, got on top of them, and same deal. It was bedded down. He just waited for it to stand up, but he had a clear shot. And I think he put 2, maybe 3 rounds in the bull. First round, dropped it, and then he walked up to it. And I was trying to get up, so shot again, and then I think shot again just to be sure, because it seems like one shot's hardly ever enough on a moose. It seems like sometimes they'll drop on the first shot, then other times they'll just stand there and take it like a man. So as soon as I got the message, I of course rushed back over to camp, got kill kits ready, got ready to hike over there and help him start butchering and stuff like that. So we went over there and took pictures and got him all dressed up and quartered out and packaged. And I think we hiked the tenderloins back the first night, so that way we had moose steaks that first night. Yeah, that was pretty cool. And I remember when I walked up to him and asked him, I was like, so what happened? And he goes, I don't know, but it's got really good fronts. And I walked up and it's just like, yep, that's the big bull. Because Matt was it seemed like Matt was more, when he looked at moose, it was like, oh yeah, that's a good one. And whereas I'm kind of the analytical one that's dissecting it, like, yeah, that's the one that had heavy, wide front palms. Let's see, it's in this picture here, and and because I was taking a bunch of pictures, and I think Matt didn't realize how big it was when he shot it. I think he just was like, "Hey, that's a good one."
That's a pretty good one. Yeah.
And I think he wasn't sure if it was the one from the night before, but it was. We checked the pictures, and it was the big one. And yeah, he's just an incredible animal, big bull, and which is good for Matt. I was really happy for Matt that he got that bull and that he got. What's that? Can you hear me?
Sorry that we keep having some hangups here, but I'll attach some pictures when I post.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
I'll attach pictures of both of our hunts there.
Perfect. Yeah. So I was really happy for Matt, and actually I was very much hoping that he would get to shoot the first bull, because on his first trip he claims that he shot the smallest bull in Alaska. So this was a big redemption for him, and I was really happy for him. And so that was pretty much that whole day was butchering that bull, and then we got back.
I might have him beat on the bull shot in Alaska.
What's that? You might have him beat.
I said I might have him beat.
Oh well, geez. Well, at least those are called meat bowls. They're meat bowls. They taste better.
That's right.
Yeah. Right.
They eat real good.
Yeah, they eat real good for sure. But yeah, so I think that was at that point that was day 5, and so Matt's tag is notched. I'm up to bat, and at this point we realize that okay, so bull's on the ground. Here's the scenario. If we have good weather, I'm going to hunt, he's going to pack. If we have bad weather, we're both going to pack. That was what we agreed at that point. Because we found out real quick that, okay, if it's foggy, we can't see the moose. But the thing that clears the fog is usually the wind. But if it's really windy, the moose just bed down. Moose hate wind. You very rarely see the moose in high wind. And occasionally you'll see them on like hillsides that are like opposing to the main wind, so they can get out of the wind. But for the most part, they're not up on their feet if the conditions aren't right. So if it was like windy, rainy, crappy, I'd just help him pack. But if it was good hunting conditions, I was going to go hunt. And so next morning, woke up, bluebird skies, slight wind, perfect conditions. We just looked at each other having breakfast, and he's like, "You know what you're doing today?" And I was like, "Yep, I'm going to go to that other drainage where we've been seeing moose too, and you're going to pack moose on this drainage." Like, "Yep, game plan." Like, "Cool, man. High five. Good luck." Hiked over there, got up on my hillside, got the spotting scope set up, made my coffee, just sitting there. And I think, I'm trying to remember, right away, I picked up probably a dozen or so moose out in this drainage and valley. And this whole valley just came alive with moose. Like it was one of those like just perfect scenarios for moose hunting. Just all of a sudden you see cows starting to pour into this valley to come in bed. You see a satellite bull over here, a satellite bull over there, and there's just strings of moose moving everywhere. And I remember I looked across the valley in this one particular spot. I kept seeing cows just pouring in and out of this one thicket. And I counted 7 or 9 different cows pouring in and out of this one thicket. And I remember thinking, I was like, I think that's where the herd bull is at here. And about 20 minutes later, the herd bull stood up, and that's when I knew it was him.
Right, game on.
Because it was like, okay, game on. How am I going to get down here on this thing? And I waited for him to kind of bed down a little bit, calm down, because as soon as he got up, he started chasing cows back and forth through the valley, and he was running off some smaller bulls too. And that gave me some time to game plan how I was going to get down in there, because to get down into this valley, I had to handrail a small like stream or drainage down the center of this valley off my ridge to get down in there with him. And it was really tall brush down in there. So I had to figure out how I was going to get down in there and how I was going to find him again once I get close to him. Because once you get down in those alders, like some of them are 10 feet high and you can't see more than 100 yards in every direction. And so thankfully there was multiple like thick patches. I just call them thickets, where there was actual trees in there. And so I was able to look through the spotter and see that there was, okay, like 3 thickets on my left. A couple hundred yards further, I should be getting close to the herd. Like, just found some landmarks to use. And I think I grabbed a couple layers of clothes.
I'm sorry, keep on going. I'm just trying to.
No worries. But yeah, I just basically stuffed the bare minimum of what I needed in my pack and just bombed in down to the valley after him off my ridge. And took me a couple hours to get down in there and get close to him. And that's where all the fun started. So I got down in there, and as soon as I started getting close, I started walking a little bit slower, looking for moose because I didn't want to get picked off. But I had brush like up to chin level, so it kind of just looked like my head bobbing on top of the brush going through there once I got in the bottom. And eventually, I picked up. I think I ran into one of the satellite bulls first. And this is where it gets real exciting because I found a satellite bull, and then I realized I was like, okay, that's a really big bull, but that's not the bull that I saw in the spotting scope. So I'm working my way along. The wind is in my favor, so the bull is actually, he's upwind of me. And I start calling a little bit, and I can hear a bull over here, the satellite bull. He's calling back to me.
Were you cow calling or
I was cow calling.
Calling like
cow calling.
Cow.
Okay. Yeah, just like soft cow moans, and I was trying to sound like a cow and a bull moving through the brush, because occasionally I would rake, and I had one of those what's it called, the bull moose magnet. It looks like a fiberglass funnel. Yeah, that's what I had. I do occasional cow call, occasional grunt call, and a little bit of raking as I was working my way through the brush, and then I could start seeing cows that were bedded down, and eventually I picked up the bull. I found him, and I was, I think, 500-600 yards away from him at that point. And then incidentally, I ended up calling in that satellite bull. In the meantime of trying to close the distance to get in on this herd bull. And he's bedded down. He's not paying much attention to me. He thinks I'm just another satellite bull or a lost cow or something. And but like I said, I ended up calling in this satellite bull, which ended up being about a 57-inch bull that then followed me like a puppy the whole way. And at one point, this bull was at 25 yards. Yes. At one point, this bull was at about 25 yards and calling at me and raking the brush while I was calling at it and raking the brush. And so it's kind of funny because we were next to each other for a couple hundred yards, less than 50 yards, moving towards this other bull as if like we were kind of squaring off on each other.
Right.
And so here it is. I have this 1,500-pound decoy next to me as I'm trying to work my way into the herd and get closer to these animals. And eventually that bull got so close, I think that he realized that I wasn't a bull or another moose, and then he kind of just stood there and stared and walked off. But he was so close, I could hear him breathing at one point, and I could smell him because I had the wind in my favor the whole time to where I could smell him. Right. It was great. It was the craziest thing having a bull that close. And
especially a big bull.
Yeah, it was a good bull. I mean, that was one of those deals where if I'd had a bow with me, I would have shot that no problem. Even if there's a 60-inch bull over here, if I have a 57-inch bull at 25 yards, I'm going to take a 25-yard shot. And so at this point, I'm almost in range of that big bull, and I was just trying to get to under 300 yards, and I hear this sound in the background. I start hearing a buzzing, and like, there's a bush plane. This is weird. And it's getting closer, getting closer, and then I can see it. And then I realize this bush plane is flying low and coming up my valley.
Wow.
Oh crap, this is bad. This is bad. He's going to push these moose off.
Right.
And so here's this guy flying a bush plane up the valley, and it's not one of our outfitter's planes. I figured that out right away because it wasn't the color of his planes.
Right.
And I'm looking at it through the binos and figuring out what the heck is this guy doing. Well, he ends up flying over the herd, spots them, and then kind of like banks down, spins around, comes back, and then starts buzzing the herd with his plane, like trying to get a better look at that bull. And in the meantime, here now all the moose are running around, and the herd bull is on his feet, trying to figure out what to do. As I'm trying to get set up for a shot, I'm like freaking out at this point because I'm like, oh crap, what do I do? What do I do? And I'm like under the brush trying to get the pilot's attention. And he eventually flies over me and banks down. You know how pilots, they'll like kind of bank down and like look down at the ground. Well, he banked and looked down at me, straightened up, and flew off.
Wow.
Yeah, and I ended up sending a message into Wade to let him know what happened after that happened. Be like, hey, some guy was just out here harassing wildlife, and it ended up getting taken care of because they knew the plane, unfortunately, which is it's like nothing. You can't expect everything to go perfect, right? So, but in the meantime, here, that guy finally flies off, and this bull is up on his feet and kind of walking from my left to right, and he's in range now. And so I get up in a clearing, I throw my pack down, I start getting the rifle ready, and it was pretty much all history from there. I was just trying to get the shot ready, waited for him to come out into a clearing, and he was moving in between brush, and so I kind of had shots here, shots there. But there were so many cows around that I was having a hard time getting a shot. And so I finally did get a shot, of course, but I shot, center punched him right behind, kind of like, I don't know, maybe 8-10 inches back behind the shoulder. And then he just kind of froze and just like stood there stiff-legged. So I was like, okay, well, put another one in, and he's kind of got that death stance to him where he's just standing there kind of trying to hold his head up a little bit, and shot again, but this time I think I hit him a little bit forward, just in front of the shoulder, because I was aiming right for the shoulder, trying to break the shoulder to get him to drop, because he was on solid ground. It's like, perfect, he's on solid ground. Let's get him to drop right there. Well, shot, he soaked it up, and then he started walking a little bit, and then he went back in the brush. And then I'm just thinking to myself, like questioning the shot. It's like, God, I know I saw where it hit. I feel good about the shot, but if he comes back out, I'm going to try to get more shots on him. So in the meantime, I grab my pack and I run up to the next clearing to get up to about 150, 200 yards within range of him. And he ends up coming back out into the open. And I was able to get 2 more shots in him, but I missed a couple shots too and had to reload my gun, because at that point I was like, okay, I got one in his lungs, one in his neck. I'm just going to try to spine this thing. And so one of the shots, I hit him in the hump, trying to hit him in the spine, but it went just above the spine, because the moose, they actually have almost a good foot of backstrap above their spine.
Yeah, it's crazy.
In the hump area, and I hit him up in that hump, and then so hit him in the hump, and then shot over him one time, trying to hit him in the spine, and then at that point he stopped moving again, and then he faced me and gave me a frontal, and then I said screw it, and sunk one right in the center of his chest, and then his head flew back, his antler hit him in the back, and he just dropped and dumped like a ton of bricks there. And so he was down. But unfortunately,
were you freaking out this whole time, having your own personal little shit show, or were you pretty calm?
Surprisingly, like probably eerily calm.
Yeah.
Because I remember asking myself at one point, it's like, I feel like I should be freaking out a little bit more right now as this is going on, because there's moose running everywhere. I just had a plane bomb in and buzz this herd and potentially ruin a once in a lifetime opportunity at a world-class animal. And I just got done sidestepping with a 57-inch bull that like I was trying to use as somewhat of a decoy to get into this herd, but at the same time try not to engage him too much because I didn't want to have to try to get him off of me if he decided to engage me. And so, yeah, it was odd how calm I was. I don't know why. But so I walk up to my bull, and he's laying there, and like I said, I watched him drop like a ton of bricks, but I didn't realize he dropped and rolled down into a ravine. And you know that little water drainage feature I told you about? Yeah, the only water feature in this entire valley, he fell and rolled down into. So I'm 2 for 2 on moose in water now.
Awesome.
Except
that's actually better than most people who are 0 for 0 on any moose.
Yeah, good problem to have, right? And at this point, he was kind of laying on top of this water feature that was only a couple feet wide, but his right paddle was hooked into the water feature and up into the bank and in the root system next to it. So at this point, I couldn't see how big he was.
Right.
And all I knew is like, wow, this thing looks like a Clydesdale and a half laying on its side with its head stuck in the water. And so I couldn't even pull it out.
Right.
It was stuck so bad, and I couldn't even get a good look at it. So I sent Matt a text on the inReach, let him know. I was like, hey, bull down. I'm going to need your help right now because this bull's head is stuck in the ground, and we're going to have to dig him out before he goes into rigor. So like, as fast as you can get over here, please do. So I took a couple of quick pictures. I think what I did is I folded his legs so that way his legs wouldn't freeze outward.
Right. Yeah.
So that way when we dug his head out, we could roll him a little bit better to get some pictures. And hiked back up to camp, got Matt, turned around, came all the way back down into this valley, and then Matt and I, we got him dug out and pulled his head out and got some pictures. And I remember at that point, Matt actually said to me, he's like, man, this thing makes my bull look tiny. I was like, what are you talking about? Your bull's gorgeous. Like Matt's bull is like the classic, perfect, symmetrical Alaskan bull with nice wide palmated palms and good width, mass, length, everything. And my bull, he's like, dude, this thing is freakishly huge. And I was like, I don't think it's bigger than yours. I think it's just really big. And he's like, well, get the tape out. I forgot that we brought a little cloth tape in the kill. I just threw that into the kill kit. That way, just for fun, we can measure him out in the field just to know for fun. Not like it really matters that much, but so we're like, yeah, sure, hold it up. Well, it's a 60-inch tape. And I remember starting at the very outer edge and there's almost a foot there. And then at that moment, I realized how big this bull really was. And so got our pictures, got him quartered. Originally, I was hoping to bring the cape out with me, but the position that he was in, we decided to not save the cape. I still don't really regret that because that would have been so hard getting that cape out of there. Which
so
I think
going to do a European, or are you going to get another cape?
I'm going to do a European mount.
A European moose is awesome.
I went into it wanting a European mount. I still want a European mount. My guy that is doing the European mount right now, he does domestic beetles, I think, what they're called. Yep. And it's the biggest thing he's ever had in his shop. And I told him, I was like, so I hope nobody ever brings a bigger moose in than this because I want to hold your shop record. And he's like, man, I don't know if there's anybody out there that would ever not mount a 60-inch bull besides you. So like, all right, well, it works out then. So like you said, I love a European mount moose. I think
you were stupid not to do his thing.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. But I don't know. They're just a shoulder mount on a moose is just so big, and
So big.
I'd rather have a European mount. It's just easier, and I love how they look. They're beautiful. It's actually going to be at the Iowa Deer Classic here this year.
Is it?
At his yep, it'll be at the Beetlejuice Skullworks European mount service booth. Yep.
Very cool.
Yep.
69.5 inches.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, 69, 6.5, somewhere in there.
Right.
Yep. So yeah, 2 bulls down back to back. Now we got a lot of work ahead of us, and on top of it, Matt's bull is 1 mile this way. My bull is 1.5 miles this way. So here we are. Then we realized, okay, looks like we're each going to pack our own moose out by ourselves pretty much. And if one guy finishes, then he'd go help the other guy. So we spent the next 4 days packing moose. But that's also where we started running into some more problems. Because on day 2 of packing, at that point, we got weathered in again. And just hard rain, sideways rain, like Forrest Gump, heavy sideways every which direction rain, right. Wearing like packing in full rain gear top to bottom, just absolutely miserable. And on that day, Matt went to go grab his first load of meat, and he's like, hey, something got into my meat last night, be careful. And like, okay, well, crap. So packed all day, got a few loads in, and the next day, same deal, just horrific weather. We went to our kill sites and meat caches to start packing. And Matt sends me another message, and he's like, man, half my moose is gone.
Really?
And it's all torn up. Everything's ripped apart, crap. And he's like, man, this sucks. I'm like, okay, well, just do the best you can. We got to get this meat up on the ridge as fast as possible. And so then fast forward to day 4, my moose is off the kill site up to the meat cache, and at this point, Matt's bull was almost entirely gone from bears, just absolutely mutilating, defecating, dragging it off, shredding it, burying it, and yeah. So
how much did you get? How much did you save?
Matt was able to save about 1.25 quarters.
Wow.
And a back strap.
Jeez.
By the time it was all said and done, and they were partially eaten.
No kidding.
Yeah, because like he would move the meat to one spot, and then they would stay on the kill site and then consume everything there, and then find his next cache.
Right.
And so he was trying to like leapfrog it as fast as possible away from the kill site, and that did work. But they were on his bull from pretty much like the second day. And once they found
cubs or something, multiple bears.
We think it was multiple bears, yeah. And we think it was also black bears and grizzly, really? Because we did end up seeing a black bear on it, but there was multiple different size tracks. So we think that it was grizzlies and black bears, because we had seen grizzlies, black bears, and both almost every single day. If we could glass far enough, we'd see bears every single day in that area. So then, wow. Yep. So Matt's moose was slowly dwindling at that point, unfortunately, and we got all the meat to pickup sites where the pilots could get to it, and then that's when the really bad weather hit. At that point, we got I think we were only a couple days away from our pickup date, and we were just absolutely sloshed in, like just hammering rain, high wind, no visibility, and just waiting for clear weather for the pilots to come in. Well, in the meantime, on day 3 of that, we were supposed to get picked up. Yeah, we were one day late getting picked up at that point. I was going over and checking on my meat cache once or twice a day. And after being weathered in, after my meat was at the cache for 3 days, I noticed something found mine too now. So looked like a couple of bags were pulled off of the cache. And when I say cache, I built like a pile of logs and sticks to get everything elevated above ground. And then I put a tarp over top of that and tacked it down on all sides so that way airflow could move underneath. And then it was protected from rain and water and stuff like that. But I noticed that something had pulled a couple bags out and was chewing on it. And then the next day, about the same as Matt's on the second day, it was about half of everything was either drug off, torn up, shredded. And I could tell multiple bears were hitting it. You could see chunks of game bags off in distant bushes where bears were dragging stuff off and burying it. And the whole time we were communicating with the outfitter the whole time, be like, hey, here's the status of the meat. Bears are hitting Matt's at this location. Now they're hitting mine at this location. Here's the status of the meat this day. But on the third day that the bears were hitting my meat cache, we had clear weather, and the pilots were supposed to try to come in and get us. That morning, I remember bopping up over top of the ridge and glassing down where my meat cache was at the pickup site, and there was two grizzly bears on it, and it just looked like a black hole in the ground.
Really?
And I could see, I think, probably 50, 75 yards off of the meat site, there was like one of my antlers sticking up out of the ground, and they even drug off my head and buried it.
I was going to ask, you can't, so you had to leave your antlers at the furthest point you got your meat to, because you can't bring in them first. Yeah, man.
Yep, to follow the regulation. And
Right.
And one of the things, like, Alaska is very, very strict with meat laws, how the meat is butchered. It has to be bone in, and in this area it's bone in. You have to take everything, like rib meat, neck meat, all four quarters. Quarters have to be on the bone, but everything else can be deboned.
Right.
Back straps, tenderloins, like just everything has to come out. And yeah, so we could not bring the antlers up to camp or anything like that, but we did bring tenderloins back up to camp, and we were eating those for dinner. But yeah, at that point, my meat cache just looked like a black hole in the ground from a distance, and there was two grizzly bears on it at that time. And
Right.
yeah, so that was the lowest point of the trip for us. And with Matt's, they pretty much had almost the entire bull consumed before he could even pack it out. Whereas with mine, I packed my entire bull out and then they hit it.
Yeah, which is worse.
Yeah, well, I honestly don't know which one's worse. I mean,
well,
it's like one's physically harder, and one, I get the satisfaction of knowing that I packed that animal out.
right.
And it was like 11 or 12 trips on my own, including the antlers. And I got that satisfaction of bringing him out. But
Right.
But I mean, there's not really a whole lot you can do to stop a grizzly bear from doing what it's going to do. And they told us, they said, do everything that you can in your power to guard that meat, but do not put yourself in a situation where you might have to kill that bear and defend yourself. You do not want to deal with that in Alaska. And I don't know that you really want to deal with having to kill a grizzly bear anywhere. So about the only thing that we could have done differently there is bring the meat closer to camp, but then you run into safety issues with that as well.
Yeah, you have bears in camp now.
Yeah, so it's, I don't know. And they would have had my bull out before the bears hit it if we didn't get weathered in for like 4 or 5 days straight.
Right. Yeah.
But I mean, just in a lot of those areas, especially those ridge areas that are very, very temperate, you just have so many things going against you. If like those moose are guarded by extreme weather and terrain, and if the weather's not against you, the terrain's against you, and if those aren't against you, the bears are against you. It's like it's just you gotta pretty much pray and hope that the cards land in your favor, and they landed in our favor right up until that point. And the whole second half of the trip, we were weathered in and socked into the tent the whole time, except for a few hours, a couple of different nights. And so that just is what it is. They told us, don't put yourself in a dangerous situation with the bears. Do everything you can to salvage the meat. Don't put yourself in a survival situation where you're going to have to defend yourself. Document everything. Take a lot of pictures. So we took pictures of everything, day by day, the status of the meat, just in the event that we had to file the claims and all that with the Game and Fish for all that.
Did you have any problems with that?
Nope.
Good.
No, they didn't give us any problems. We did our diligence. We were able to show, okay, here's where the moose were killed. Here's when we started packing. Here's where we ended packing. This is the kill site. If you want to go check the kill site to make sure that we took all the salvageable meat off, you can physically see that. So you can see the carcass without any meat on it. We salvaged everything. Here's where the meat caches were. Here's just basically proving that we did our diligence and did everything that we could. And like I said, I think the only thing we could have done there is either bring the meat closer to camp, as well as somebody had mentioned to me after the fact that sometimes people bring lightweight electrical fences to put around meat caches.
Yeah.
I think that would have worked, but it's just not really something that I allowed weight for on the way in. And it wouldn't have changed anything with Matt's bull, but it potentially could have helped the situation with mine. But I think that unless the meat was close enough to camp, then I think that, eventually one of the bears would have just knocked the fence over and walked over it.
Yeah, probably.
It deter them for an amount of time, but we were weathered in for so long we just couldn't salvage it. But so then I think we were stuck in the field for an extra 2 days and waiting for the weather to clear. They came in, got us. They pulled Matt out first, and I broke down camp while I was waiting for the pilot to come back in for me. And they came in to grab me, and it was kind of funny when they grabbed what was left of the moose meat and the moose heads. It was kind of funny because we had our moose in two slightly different areas. The plane could land over in spot A or B, but because they were not picking any meat up with my bull, they couldn't just land right there and pick up the head because they had to have both the meat and the head to counterbalance the plane. So as the pilot's sitting there loading up Matt's bull and meat, he goes, "Where's yours?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's in that other spot that you could pick up at." He looks over there and goes, "Oh, there's no meat there to pick up anymore, is there?" "No." He says, "You're going to have to run over there and grab that head quick."
Oh, no.
Oh, my God. So here I am. He's like, yeah, so I'm like hoofing it over there with a rifle in one hand. And at this point, I'm sore, my back hurts, my feet are all messed up.
Yep.
And I'm running over there looking both ways and over my shoulder to grab this case for grizzlies because we just saw them there about an hour ago. So I run over there, grab my head, hoof it back real quick, and had to throw him on my back one more time, I guess.
Yep.
hike him up to the pilot, and he was real cool with it though. He was just like, "This is what we got to do to get it out." So that just is what it is. They flew the bulls out, and they flew to like St. Mary's or something like that, one of those small villages, dropped all the gear, the moose and Matt off, and then came back and got me and picked me up, and off we went with the rest of the gear, and back to St. Mary's to drop me off. And then they at that point another pilot came up to the village, and he was flying a Cessna, and the first load he took a bunch of gear and Matt's moose or my moose, I can't remember. I think my moose went first, if I remember right. And so somehow they fit 60-inch, 70-inch moose inside of a Cessna.
It's crazy.
They weren't very happy about it.
It's crazy.
Yeah, they didn't have any seats in them. Put it that way. They're like they were taking seats out and putting them back in every time they pick something up.
Right.
So like they took all the seats out to fly the head back, and then put the seats back in to fly Matt and I, and then Matt's bull back at the same time. But they had it pretty well figured out, and yeah, and then they came, grabbed us, went back to Bethel, and rolled in, and the hangar door opened, and there's Russ Meyer standing there
Yep.
because he just got back into the hangar that day too. So
Right. Yeah, I remember seeing that picture of you guys together in the hangar. It's like, wow,
yeah,
what a coincidence.
yeah, I knew he was going to be up there, but I knew that our dates didn't overlap. Like I was actually supposed to leave
Right.
before him, so
yeah,
it was
he was
one of
going
those.
into the field and you were leaving when you, right?
Yeah, like he went into the field about midway through my trip, and then I think he actually left the field early because
That's right.
if you tag out early, they'll give you the option to pull you out early, and they encourage that because of the weather. Because like if they can get you out early versus having to pull you out late and reschedule flights and all that stuff, then it's just easier to grab you
For
when you
sure.
can. So
And it's
that was
pretty
not.
boring to sit there in camp if you got nothing to, no, nothing.
Yeah, yeah, and some of those camps have other game. Like some of the camps do have decent amount of black bears around them, and
Yeah,
then
that's true.
some camps have more wildlife around them. Like if somebody wanted to go like ptarmigan hunting or something like
Yeah.
that, I did that on my first trip. But no, I'm all about getting out early. If they could have pulled us off the ridge early, I would have. To be honest
For
with you,
sure.
not like I want to get out of the field early, but
Yeah.
during that whole trip, we only had 3, maybe 4 days that were full clear days from the time we woke up to the time we went to bed, where it was just good hunting all day. The rest of the time, we had a couple of evenings that were clear that we could spot and see moose, but less than half the time in the field was good hunting weather.
Right.
And I'm sure that a guy could still hunt in the pouring rain and wind and all that, but about the only tactic you have is just drop elevation and go get in the bottom and hope something walks by.
Right.
So, but
Well, my hunt was way easier than yours. It sounds like
yeah,
that we had never seen anybody with. And so you were up out of Bethel. I was down out of Wasilla, and
yep.
we flew into Anchorage. I Ubered to Wasilla, and with my buddy Brandon. Neither one of us had hunted moose before. Outfitter picked us up there in Wasilla. The only thing I would have done different gear wise is if you do that hunt, the hunt I did, there's a Sportsman's Warehouse right there in town. And I could have, and they were fully stocked, and there would have been no problem to buy a bunch of gear right there. Like my mountain house and all my food and stuff. That would have been nice to not have to take it on the plane. But other than that, everything was good. We showed up and he flew us into camp that day. We arrived in Wasilla, he flew us in. It's kind of funny that you can't hunt that day, but the next day, we got
no fly day.
Yeah, the next day and we couldn't see out at all. Really, we were camped on a lake. We landed in a float plane, and couldn't really see out. So we just had to sit in camp and call. That was what we had to do. So we're calling from camp, calling. Don't see anything all day. That night, a big bull is. And it's naive and stupid on my part. I should have known this, but I didn't know the shooting hours regulations in Alaska. And here in Idaho, that we wouldn't have been able to shoot that because it was past shooting hours for sure, because it was almost dark. We could barely see him through the scope, but totally could have shot him easily. And so we didn't shoot, and we used the inReach. inReaches are invaluable. Use that to text the outfitter. He goes, "Oh man, yeah, you could have shot. If you can see him, you can shoot in Alaska." So that's a good thing to know that I didn't know.
Yeah. Shoot him in the dark if you want. If you can see him, you just can't use artificial light.
Yeah, that's what he said. Just no artificial light. And I didn't know that. I should have. It was dumb on my part. But anyway, could have killed a bull the first hunt day. The next day, Oh, and that bull. And we are forced to just go to bed. So we try to be really quiet and go to bed. And he comes right, and we could hear him just grunting right behind our tent.
Yeah.
Hoping he's there in the morning, but he wasn't. But we saw it 10 yards away. We could see where he'd been raking and been. Anyway, we called in quite a few small bulls throughout the time. And on, I think, the third or fourth day, we have a bull coming in right behind camp. So we go and we sneak. And our deal was I was shooting my bow, and my buddy Brandon was shooting a rifle. And I got the first good bow opportunity. And he was going to back me up, of course. And if it looked like it wasn't going to come together, he was going to shoot. So that was the deal. So this bull's coming right in. It was like Jurassic Park. There's this line of trees, this thin finger of trees, and we can hear him just crashing through them. And you can actually see the trees just going.
Like Jurassic Park.
And yeah. And so where I was hunting, it has to be a 50-inch minimum. It has to be 50 inches wide or 3 brow tines.
Yep.
So I'd done all my homework on how to judge, 50 inches. All of a sudden, this bull comes through those trees at 62 yards. Comes out, and a 50-inch bull looks huge when it's 60 yards away, especially if it's the first time you've hunted moose, which it was.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sitting there. I'm just getting ready. I'm thinking, man, he's for sure over 50 inches. I didn't even look at the brow tines. I'm like, he's for sure over 50 inches. Absolutely. I'll shoot him with my bow all day long. So I'm sitting there waiting. And he's quartered a little bit, and I want him to just be broadside. And he's just starting to take a step. And we had been there. I'd been like this, not drawn back, but just like this for like a minute and a half. And Brandon, he's like 60 yards behind me, not behind me, off to my side kind of, but further away from the bull. And he thinks that I'm drawn back the whole time. So from his angle, he thought I was drawn back. So he's thinking. And so just as this bull's starting to take a step, I am physically starting to squeeze on my release. I'm starting to go to shoot. Kaboom! Brandon shoots.
Should have just sent it anyways.
I jump and
I got him first.
Yeah, I let down. Anyway, he was 52 inches. He's a cool bull. On one side, he comes his fronts come way out. He's a cool bull.
Uh-huh.
Not a monster, but he's big. 52 inches is big. I was surprised when he was only 52 because we're looking at him and he's got to be 60. He's got to be, man. We measured. It's like kind of a letdown, but still, he was awesome.
Yeah.
Killed him about 75 yards behind camp. So it was like a 75-yard pack the next day. Super easy. After that, we didn't have any bow opportunities for like most of the rest of the hunt. Could have shot multiple. I could have grabbed Brandon's rifle and shot big bulls, but I really wanted to shoot one with my bow. On the last day, we have a bull coming in around we're glassing him with the spotting scope, and first he was just a dink, like little bullwinkle, just a little meeple. And but we're looking at him close, and he has 3 brow tines. I'm gonna pass though, but I'm gonna go down and let's see if we can call him in and get him on video. So Brandon goes down with the video camera, and I'm going down in front. And this bull is just coming on a string, just coming right in.
Uh-huh.
And he actually comes past me at like 5 yards, and I'm drawn back, and I'm thinking, as I'm drawn back, I'm kind of looking up at his rack, and I can see his brow tines. This is important later in the story. I can see his brow tines from this certain angle, and he's definitely 3 brow tines, and one of them's like this long. The shortest one's like 2 inches. So I'm sitting here thinking, I'm going processing everything in my head. It's the last day. I'm 20 yards from the lake, so I just have to pack it and can get to me. And I'm 50 yards from camp, and I'm drawn back, and he's like 7 yards now. I just couldn't hold. I shoot. And so anyway, so we pack him down, get our pictures. The outfitter or the transporter shows up the next morning, and he looks at my bull and he says, "That's not legal." I'm like, "Oh, he's legal. He's got 3 brow tines." And he goes, "Well, it's got to be it's got to be an inch." And I go, "It's like 2 inches. It's like 2 inches. We measured it. It's 2 inches." And he goes, "No, look at it. You measure him from looking straight down on top." So from the side, it's 2 inches. But looking down on the top of it, it's like this. Do you know kind of, it comes into the palm?
Uh-huh.
You know what I kind of mean? I'd have to show a picture of it to really tell. So I'm freaking out. So he goes, "I can't lose my plane." And I understand. I agree with him. He goes, "I can't lose my plane. I'm going to have to call and have him come check it." He goes, "It's really close." And I'm freaking out. So we fly into Wasilla. Officer comes in and he's measuring it. And he's asking, he's a cool guy. What he does is he looks down on the top and he measures from the end of the antler, the end of the point, measures down an inch, makes a little mark. And then at that point, it has to be longer than it is wide. And so let me think so I get this right. So I'm an inch down, and the width, he's measuring it forever. He's sitting in there looking. I go, "Man, you're making me super nervous right now." And he goes, "You're okay. You're good." But I was good by 1/8 of an inch. So
Son of a gun.
the moral of this story is make sure that although he was 3 brow tines, make sure for a fact they're 3 long, good brow tines, because that could have been a disaster. So
that would have been a very bad experience.
That would have been ugly. Yeah, it would have been ugly for sure. But he said, "I know what you mean. I know," because I told him the same story. He goes, "I can see what you mean looking at him from the side." He goes, "Really, I would have let you go because it's obvious. It is obvious." And but still, 3 brow tines. So that's the difference in the hunt you went on. You can shoot any bull, but the hunt I went on, it has to be 50 inches or 3 brow tines. And we saw lots of bulls that fit that bill, but it is a different element to that hunt. You have to pay attention to, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And,
so
yeah,
super fun though. Super fun. Yeah. Taking all that gear through the airport is it's an experience.
yeah, that was a trip. I know that it wasn't too hard to get packed up and leave, but I remember something that was kind of interesting. We talked a lot about packaging our own meat and packaging our own skulls and horns and stuff like that. Something that I didn't know about in the meantime, the outfitter, they now have a representative from the wildlife gallery up at their hangar for the entire moose season.
Right.
And you can just pay him a small fee and he'll package it for you. And being as we were late out of the field, I had already had my girlfriend, God bless her, poor girl, I stressed her out so much. I had her reschedule my flights for me like multiple times while we're trying to get out of the field. And I was so short on time getting out of the field. The guy is a super nice guy. He was offering to package it for me. And here I have all my own packaging supplies that I brought with me. And then here's this guy who's like, "I'll package it for you tonight. I'm staying here late. I got like 5 to do." And it's like, "How much?" $75. Like, "Yep, just do it."
Oh, so that's worth it all day long.
Because that was the difference. That was the difference between being able to put an order in for pizza before they closed.
Yes.
And, the pizza party was very important.
Right. Yeah.
So they do have somebody expediting your trophies for you. And then also something neat about that outfit that I went through, they now have somebody in town that is cutting and freezing meat for you for I think about $1 a pound. And they're not doing like elaborate stuff like sausages or anything like that, but just basic cut package type service. And they'll do that for like $1 a pound, and they'll do it overnight. So that's a really good option too. Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
like just yeah. I mean, it's kind of expensive if you're bringing like a whole bull home, $500-600. But
Right.
at the same time, just being able to say, I don't want to change my flight in the morning. If you can get this done by tomorrow morning, yeah, let's do this. So
Right.
that's a really good option they offer now. And then when I was up there last time, for guys that wanted to self butcher like I was planning to do, they just like threw some plywood on top of a cooler, and that was your table, which is fine. You're out of the
That's what
weather.
I did, Brandon.
Yeah, which works just fine. Not complaining. But with this time, what they're trying to achieve now is they try to improve the service every single year, and so now they're not even bringing animals into the hangar. It's actually kept in a small like standalone building next door. So they have like a walk-in cooler now, like that is on the same property, not next door. They have a giant locked up shed to keep trophies and gear in, and then it's all like staged out accordingly to which direction it's going. And then they also had like this shed out front that was like a butchering station that looked like it was brought in on like a roll off or something. And it was like looked like a little clubhouse or shed that you keep in your backyard, but inside of it, the whole outer perimeter was lined with butchering tables with like plastic tops, so you could butcher your own meat outside in a certain room just for that. So they offer a few new things at that service now that I was unaware of. Otherwise, I probably would have left a few more things back home for meat packaging and trophy packaging.
Oh, that's awesome. So that's our Bethel hunt, but
Yep.
the hunt I went on out of Wasilla, that is purely just a transport hunt. However, I did leave most of my camp in Wasilla with one of our consultants at his place, or he's out of not Wasilla, Palmer, which is pretty close. So you could we're setting it up so you can rent that camp from us and go in if you go on the Wasilla hunt. So that's a good option. But my outfitter that I went with, he's purely just a transporter, as opposed to the Bethel outfitter. He's offering some other services, and you can rent a camp from him, so you don't have to
Yep.
pack up or take all your own stuff in. So
Yep.
that's pretty good.
Yep. So travel on the way home. Russ and I's moose heads did not end up going on the same plane out of Bethel. Russ and I actually, we had the same flight from Bethel to Anchorage there. And our moose heads did not make it out with us because there was like 10, 15, 20 moose heads going out all at one time. So they had to put them on a different flight.
Right.
Which I was a little worried about. But when I got back to Chicago after going through Anchorage, and then, yeah, I believe I went straight to Chicago from Anchorage. The moose head and the shed antlers that I found didn't come through, but all my gear showed up. And when I showed up there was an Alaska Airlines representative in his office waiting for me. He knew who I was, that I had a moose and additional antlers, and he already had a solution ready to go. So I don't know what else you could ask of an airline other than that. And on top of it, I told you I live about 4 hours from Chicago. I was like, okay, well, I can go get a hotel till it shows up. And they're like, oh no, we're just going to drive it to you. And I was just like, you know, moose are big, right? And he goes, oh yeah, but we'll make it work. We're going to deliver it to you. And I was like, okay, so if I leave home now, you're just going to deliver it to me sometime the next couple of days? They're like, yep. So my ride picked me up from Chicago, took me home, and the next day, a nice man from Alaska Airlines driving a Dodge Caravan showed up with a 69-inch moose and a pile of shed antlers in the back.
Go
and
Alaska Airlines, that's awesome. Shout out to them.
Absolutely. I shout out to Alaska Airlines every chance I get because they've been so good to me. And I don't know that there's another air service out there that can cater itself more to a hunter and I think everybody should use them. And
I agree.
I might add that they delivered that 69-inch moose to my front door for no additional charge. Like that wasn't some extra fee they tacked on.
Amazing.
They went above and beyond, and I'm so thankful for that. Other than that, I think as far as like gear notes, stuff like that, there really isn't a whole lot that I change. Gear wise, the only notes that I had were I want to continue trying to find the perfect boot that works for me, because my feet hurt a little bit, but I think that might just go hand in hand with packing moose, having your feet hurt a little. But I didn't get any blisters. I just had my feet just felt really bruised, and I think that's just from the side hilling and stuff like that. But no blisters. And then I feel like I brought 2 pairs of pants, I believe. One for like my main hunting pant, and then another just a backup. I kind of wish that I brought 2 main hunting pants and then a really lightweight pair of pants to get bloody and for packing. Because that way when you're done packing, you can just take those off and leave them outside in the rain and they wash themselves out. But otherwise, gear-wise, I felt pretty dialed, and there wasn't a whole lot that I do different. I was pretty happy and satisfied with everything.
Here.
My buddy Matt, afterwards.
That gear list that you have that's on the site, you can find that if you just go to Outdoors International and you search unguided, preparing for an unguided moose hunt, just search that. You'll see the gear list, and it's very complete. It would work for, and listen to the podcast preparing that we did. That'll prepare you for any unguided Alaska hunt, whether it's caribou or moose. It would cover you.
Yep.
One thing I wanted to throw in on these hunts, on any Alaska hunt, it's a really good idea. We work with a travel insurance company, and most of our hunters have started using it. So if you go to Outdoors International and talk to Tara, just look up Tara and she'll help you get travel insurance. But they help you reschedule your flight for no added charge. They take care of that for you. They have a concierge service. If you have to get a room because your flight got canceled, you got weathered out, that room's covered. And it's just a nominal fee based on the cost of your hunt.
Well,
travel insurance is worth it. So just go to Outdoors International, talk to Tara, she'll set you up. So that's a pretty good deal.
So that travel insurance, would that cover the cost of changing the flight as well?
I believe so, yes. I haven't had to use it yet myself, but I've had lots of our hunters use it. I can speak to one example. I just talked to the guy the other day. He went to Alaska with 2 other guys, and he got the insurance. They didn't. Their flight got canceled because of weather coming home. So they had to get a room. The travel insurance paid the cost of having to transfer the flights. I think it's like $300 to get the other flight. Is that right? I can't remember.
Changing flights ended up costing me about $500.
500,
By the time it was all said and done, all the extra costs, it cost me an extra $500 that wasn't expected.
So they did cover that for him. They covered his Uber to get to the hotel to run him around. They covered their hotel room because they all stayed in one room. So it covered their hotel room, and it covered his food, his extra food.
Oh, wow.
That's the time of his original flight. So pretty good service. And I think that cost him up front like $200 to purchase up front. So worth it.
Yeah, it would have paid for itself on my trip. I kind of wish I'd done that.
Absolutely. At almost any Alaska trip, you're gonna have something often, about half the time, I'd say.
Yeah, and that makes sense.
Anyway, just wanted to throw that in.
Yeah, for sure. Which that makes sense because
I think we better hang it up. Our internet connection is sucking.
Yeah, you're probably right. Quit while we're ahead.